Rensselear Polytechnic Institute is steeped in history. It's appropriate that this technical institution sprang up in the industrialized area of Troy, New York. But inside the Rensselear campus is a model railroad society that captured some of that history and brought it indoors.
The society was founded in 1947 on the Rensselaer campus by Rensselaer students. And since that point, the students remain in control of the society. It's one of about 140 different activities on campus.
John Nairich was a member as a student. Since 1989, he's been an employee of the union supervising the goings-on at the Model Railroad Society.
I graduated here in '72 and I continued as a volunteer with the organization, and I worked at different part-time positions, some with the state of New York and others temporary, because I was really interested in the historical aspect of this and working on this project.
Since 1972, the layout has been housed in the basement of Davison Hall, a dormitory. With the ongoing changes on campus, the Model Railroad Society has known many homes.
The society has been located in a total of 4 locations, and 2 of the previous ones were torn down and another one they moved us out of because we take a lot of space. The rooms we occupy now it's a total of 123 feet long by 33 feet wide. The layout itself, if you stretched it out, would be about 500 feet long. Only the students can be full members in the sense that they vote, and they're the only ones who can hold office. We do have members who are outside the RPI community, and normally we don't vote on anything, so it's not a problem. But the students make the decisions as to what we're going to work on next and exactly what we're going to be doing. And I think a lot of times they would take on things that people who are in the hobby for a long time would find kind of overwhelming, but they don't realize they're supposed to be overwhelmed.
Before I came to school, I had done no model railroading at all. I was into model cars and model airplanes, but I've learned a lot of the specifics about model railroading that I didn't know before.
I learned a lot about the history of the area, especially Troy. It actually had a pretty long and interesting history, and that's neat. And I've also learned a lot about the Rutland, and since I live in Vermont, the Rutland has a lot of historical interest to me.
This HO model recreates life on the Delaware, Hudson, and Rutland lines, and the key to accuracy is research.
It's all set in 1950 because that's when steam engines were still running, although diesels had been introduced. We since discovered that a lot of the things that we found very interesting, like the Troy station or the Saratoga and Lake George stations, a lot of the heavy industry were torn down by the end of the 1950s or early 1960s. Over a long period of time, we've settled on the various scenes, and then it becomes a matter of trying to track down the information. We've worked from aerial photos, we've worked from fire insurance maps, we've gone down to Washington, D.C. to look up valuation information that the federal government collected around World War I. We're always looking for historic photos. We become adept at looking at like a corner of a building and one photo, because we know the scene, we say, aha, we know what this photo is. And so it's a detective story. It's very interesting to kind of piece together information.
In 1910, as many as 130 trains a day passed through this Troy station. Troy was a worker community, and the layout reflects it. The rich and famous vacationed in Saratoga. You can find a sample of that lavish lifestyle right on the layout. Research is crucial, and for an area like this Rutland Yard, planning and building takes time.
Well, one of the things that we've discovered is that because there's a lot of information about the railroads themselves, there's a lot of documentation as to what they shipped and where it was being shipped to, the frequency, and the number of freight cars. It's kind of like taking a blood sample of the human body to find out what's going on between the various organs. Because the industries themselves, it's hard to find information, but if you find a blast furnace shipped out this many cars of ore or this many cars of finished product, or this many cars of coal were going into the industry, it's a way of finding out what was going on in the industry, even though you're really studying the railroad. Well, I think that one of the things that we found is that the research aids modeling, but the modeling aids research. Because what we've discovered is that it makes us ask questions that we would not normally ask as a result of just looking at photographs. We've studied them so intimately that it leads us into more questions. And then the other thing too is that when visitors look at some of the scenes and someone will say, no, this house wasn't this color in 1950 because I lived in that house. And so then otherwise we'd have no source of that information.
We enter a lot of the data from old books, old car encyclopedias and things like that to the computer. And through that, we can tell what the mix of the freight cars should be on the layout so that we can try to duplicate that in our models.
All that research is evidenced in the area of the layout known as Red Rocks.
We went up there, I'm not sure how many times. I mean, the first few times it was just simply to say, wow, this is a spectacular scene. And then as time went on and we were actually modeling it, we measured the telephone poles, and then we could locate them in a photograph and figure out the spacing of the rock features. We went up in the fall to get the colors of the foliage. We went up in the winter and we walked out on the ice one time and got broadside pictures of the rock work as an aid in modeling.
It's a magnificent classroom to learn the history of the area, to apply technical skills, and to model at the same time.
Most of the students come in here with absolutely no model railroad background at all. And within a short time, they're encouraged and they have the courage themselves to jump into very sophisticated projects.
I've learned how to lay track, how to do buildings, how to model freight cars, how to weather them, learned how to airbrush cars. Just a lot of basic modeling skills I didn't have before I came to school here.
At least one of those students never left. They keep creating a time machine at Rensselear.
I think society has kind of underestimated how much cultural changes there have been since the time when railroads and heavy industries, smokestack industries, really dominated the culture. And now we're a society of information transfer and airlines and automobiles, and the things that went along with the age of railroads have kind of disappeared along with the railroads.
Rensselear Polytechnic has a course that actually teaches the history of railroading. For those of you who would like to visit the layout, it's open on Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.